Hey Defenders, welcome back. In this video, I want to show you guys how we can monitor the health of our Wazuh managers. These are our focal point in terms of our our log collection and our alert collection. So we want to make sure that these guys are always running in a healthy state. So we need a way to detect and then attempt to auto-resolve unhealthy Wazuh managers. And if that still fails, then to actually escalate an alert to where we can get someone on the team involved to remediate the issue before we start losing alerts. So in this video, again, no manager equals no alerts. So we really need to make sure our managers are always in a healthy state, or else we're going to miss out on potential high severity alerts within our environment. So as part of you guys are probably familiar now with the Wazuh manager that runs as a service. However, that service is not just one standalone process. There are multiple processes that make up the Wazuh manager service as a whole, and these are responsible for doing various tasks. So like the Wazuh-auth process, for example, is for registering new Wazuh agents that attempt to join your cluster. Your syscheckd process is the file integrity monitoring process. So all these various tasks here make up the Wazuh manager as a whole, and a failure in any of these one processes results in our Wazuh manager not running in as healthy of the state as it needs to take advantage of all of its features. So in this video, what I want to do is just create a simple bash script that we're going to run on our Wazuh manager on a set interval of 30 seconds. So our bash script will do a pgrep. We'll take advantage of the pgrep command, but we're going to grep out and see if our processes have a process ID. So if we go back, you see all of our processes here. We have a process ID in our second column here. So what this pgrep command is going to do is look to see if there is a process ID. And if there is not, we're going to attempt a auto restart. Then we will output it to a health.json file, and that'll be sent to Elasticsearch and to Kibana to where we could view it within Kibana as well. So we're going to create a bash script to detect running Wazuh processes. We're then going to attempt to have the script to resolve the issue by itself. We're then going to write the output to our temp/health.json file. We're going to collect the file with the Wazuh manager so that we can actually view it within Kibana, right? So because we need to know if the manager is in a healthy state or not. So we need to tell our manager to actually collect that file. We're then going to set our script to run every 30 seconds. You could do this with a cron job. I'm actually going to take advantage of Wazuh's WOODLE to do so. So hopefully that'll kind of familiarize you guys with the WOODLE feature as well. And then we're going to create some detection rules because you'll see what our output will look like here in a sec. And by default, Wazuh doesn't have a rule to detect on what we want to detect on. So we'll create some Wazuh rules here as well. And all right, so I am on my Wazuh manager here, and if I do a ps-aux and let's grep for Wazuh, here you can see all of our running processes. I will note, I don't know when the exact change was. I think it might have been with their 4.2 release. If you're running on a Wazuh manager version for 4.2 or later, I think I can go info. Yeah, so if you're running on version 4.2.0 or later, your process will be named Wazuh-integrator-d, Wazuh-auth. But if you're on an earlier version, again, don't quote me on this. I don't know if it was before the 4.2 release, but these processes used to be called OSEC-exec-cd or OSEC-syscheckd. So before implementing, and the script won't work for you if yours is OSEC, for example, because I'm looking for, as in particular, our processes are called Wazuh-auth. So if yours are OSEC here and you want to follow along and use this script, you would just replace Wazuh here with an OSEC dash so that you can ensure that you are looking for the right processes. So I'll go ahead and clear that out, and let me copy the contents of this guy, and I'll just call the script Wazuh_healthcheck.sh, and I'll paste this guy in here, and let's kind of walk through it a little bit. At the top here, we're setting a host I'm setting this host variable here. And what this guy is doing is going to tell me what Wazuh manager is the one that's actually having the problem. So if I have a cluster of Wazuh managers deployed within my environment, I need to know the exact Wazuh manager that's having an issue so that I can quickly get on the box and troubleshoot. And that is what this command is doing here. So what I'm doing is actually what interface can actually connect to 8.8.8.8, and I'm grabbing that IP address of that interface. So if I exit out and just run this command by itself, you see I get returned my IP address that is assigned to my interface that has a route out to the internet. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm taking that value and then assigning it to the host variable. You could also probably just do you could also do a host name. Host name would work as well. So if you wanted to replace this block here with just like a host name, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just doing it this way. And so then when we start to step down, you see our if statements here. And here we are just grepping. It's pretty simple. I could also do a loop and probably make it a little cleaner, but I've taken the lazy man approach, I guess, and just and I am no programmer by any means. So let me know in the comments if you have a better way of implementing this, but let's go ahead and walk through it. So I'm first doing an if statement, and I'm going to pgrep wazuh-authd. So if I actually just run this command by itself, you see we get our process ID back. And if we do our ps-aux again, that process ID will match exactly what pertains to our wazuh-authd. So here we have our wazuh-authd process, and here we see our process ID number 4105, which directly corresponds there. So when the script runs, we have an if statement here, and this -n is just saying if we have something that's returned to our shell. So for example, if I kill this process and do a pgrep for wazuh-authd again, you see we don't get anything returned because there's no process ID associated with that. So that is what the -n in the script is looking for. So if nothing's returned, then we can assume that the health check has failed. But if something is returned, then we can assume that it is in a healthy state. And so what I'm doing then is then just setting this JSON variable here, and here I'm building my JSON. So here I have a host key, and then the value that I'm setting to that is the output of our host command that we ran up here. So in my case, that'll be a 192.168.200.16. We then separate it with a comma, and then we then state the Wazuh process key. And since we are in this particular if statement, this if statement is only looking for the wazuh-authd process. So I set that statically as my value for my key here, and then I have a healthy key, and I state that to yes, no, or attempting a restart. So in this particular block here, if the command pgrep wazuh-authd returns a process ID, then we can assume that this authd process is in a healthy state. So we set our JSON variable to this JSON string here, and then we're going to echo that JSON into a temp/health.json file. Else, so assuming that if we run this command and no process ID is returned, that's what this else is stating here. So if this is not true, then we're going to attempt a restart. And this is just a comment. This isn't actually any instructions for the server to do. This is just a comment here. But we're then going to set our JSON string to, again, we're setting our host. We are still in the wazuh-authd process. And then our healthy field here, we're just going to say attempting restart, because we know that the wazuh-authd process is not running. So we're going to attempt a restart. I'm going to echo that into my health.json file. And then I'm actually going to take advantage of the wazuh-control binary to run a restart. And this will restart all the Wazuh processes and attempt to bring them all back up again. We're then going to sleep for 5 seconds. So I'm gonna give some time for the Wazuh service to get back up and running. And then we're going to run through the same if statement again. So if a process ID is returned, then we say healthy is set to a yes. And we'll output that JSON string to our temp/health.json else we can assume else. So if the process is not running, we attempt to restart and the process is still not running, then JSON string here and healthy will say to no, and then we're going to write that to our temp/health.json file, and then we're going to finish this if statement here, and we are then going to move on to the next process, which is the Wazuh-db. And here the logic is all the exact same. All we do is just change the process that we are grabbing for in the appropriate fields. So pretty straightforward. It's nothing complex, but we don't necessarily need it to be complex. Making something complex doesn't necessarily make it better all the time. So let's actually go ahead and run this script. So let me clear this out. Now let's make the script an executable. So I'm gonna go chmod +x Wazuh health check. And now let me actually remove the content of what's currently in my health.json, and let's go ahead and give this guy a run. All right, so, and that was it. The script will run really fast. Even if it does have to restart, it takes, I don't know, like 10 seconds maybe. But now let's actually look at the contents of our health.json. So we should see everything in a healthy state. And here you see our JSON strings that we were building in our script. So again, we have the host, so we know what host the script is running on. We have the Wazuh process. So here you see our Wazuh auth-d, Wazuh db, Wazuh exec-d, and their status. So healthy, yes, healthy, yes, healthy, yes. So all these were healthy. So that meant that at the time that this script ran, all of these processes were running, which that looks good. So now let's go ahead and kill one. Let's pick on the auth-d again. So I'm gonna kill 8531. So I'm gonna kill that process. If I do a grep for the Wazuh, we see that auth-d is no longer here. Now let's run our script again and let's see it attempt to self-heal itself. So I'm gonna kick off the script again. You can see it's not running as fast, right? So now it has detected that, hey, the Wazuh auth-d process was not running. So I'm gonna run a restart and attempt to heal it, and attempt to bring it back online. And then once that's stopped, once that's done, it'll sleep for 5 seconds and it'll run through the analysis again. And now the script has completed. And if I cat out the contents of that file, you see we're just appending to our health.json because, well, I suppose you could overwrite this file every time if you wanted to, but I'm just appending to it in this demonstration. But here you can see we had our Wazuh auth-d health status was attempting restart. So the script did not detect a process ID for it. So we set our healthy field to attempting restart. We then ran the script, then ran the restart, slept for 5 seconds, ran the analysis again, and said, okay, the Wazuh auth-d process is now back online and we are in a healthy state. So that looks good. But now, of course, we're not actually sending this file to Kibana at all, right? Like we would have to get on this we'd have to get on this server and look at the file manually to be able to detect anything. And that just doesn't scale well, right? So, all right, so let's first actually have Wazuh collect this temp/health.json file. So, and this will be on the osec.conf of your Wazuh manager. So I'm just going to do it within the web UI. You can also, log on to the server itself and do it. So I'm going to go into management, module, and I'll just scroll all the way down to the bottom. And now let's tell Wazuh to actually collect that health.json file. So if you go into my GitHub, which I will link in the description below, you'll see our local file block. And here, this is a log format of JSON, right? So we're telling Wazuh, hey, this is in the JSON format, and the location is /temp/health.json. If you're outputting your JSON file to another directory, you would just need to specify that there. So good. So we're now telling Wazuh, hey, this is a file that I want you to collect. Now let's use Wazuh's Woodle feature to run this script every 30 seconds. You could, again, do a cron job if you wanted to. I'm going to take advantage of Wazuh in this case. So here we have our Woodle is set to command, and this basically allows us to invoke a command on the manager. And what we want so we'll have disabled set to no. The tag we're just setting to health check. This can be any string that you want, so you don't have to necessarily say health check. The command that we want it to run is we just want it to run this file. So here we are pointing to this file. So here we are pointing to this file. So opt/wazuh_healthcheck.sh. So that looks good. And then we want a interval. So this is how often do we want this to be ran, and we're going to set this to any 30 we're going to set this value to 30 seconds. This can be, of course, any interval you want. You can do seconds, days, weeks, months, maybe years. I'm not sure. Their documentation gives you all the options you can set for that. We are then going to set the ignore output to yes, just because I am writing to our health, because this script itself is writing to the health.json, so we don't need the output to be sent back to the manager. Run on start, set to yes, just meaning that when the Wazuh manager process restarts, we run this script again. So let's go ahead and save that off. And let's restart our manager. And now we should see that our manager is collecting the, let's actually, so here we can see after running a restart, here we can see it picking up our temp/health.json file. So that looks good. Now we should also see the WOODLE being ran every 30 seconds. The starting command health check. So here we can see it is running our script. If we tail it, wait for 30 seconds, we should see this guy be populated again within 30 seconds of the status of the current health status of our Wazuh manager. And so there it just ran again, and we can see that it pinned everything to the file. So that's looking good. However, we are still not capturing we still don't have any rules to capture these, right? So if I, for example, if I grab one of these entries, pop back over to my manager into our rules, and if I run a rule set test, we probably won't get anything back. Yeah, so Wazuh doesn't have a rule for this, so we need to go ahead and create one. So if we go back into the GitHub, created some rules for us already, which I'll link in the description below as well, so you guys aren't having to fight to find it. And I'm gonna copy this block here. You'll notice these metric healths. I'm gonna get into this in the next video, so this will be actually collecting resources on the server itself. So how much disk space do we have left, how much CPU is being consumed, and how much memory is being consumed, because we also need to monitor the health of the server itself, right? If the server enters an unhealthy state, then our Wazuh manager is going to be unhealthy as well. So I'm going to copy this block here, and I'll paste it down here, and let me add my last group flag. There we go. And let's kind of walk through this. So we're first assigning it to a group as Wazuh, and then health check, and then we're doing our rule IDs and our level. Since this is a JSON file, since this is a JSON string, and I know it's a JSON string, we are going to set our decoded as JSON, and then we're going to just look for the field healthy. And here we have a regex match on anything. That's what this /$ is. So this is basically all this rule is doing is just grouping our Wazuh health check. So this rule will fire every time because the healthy field, going back to our script, this healthy field exists in every log entry that goes into this file. So because that's, I could have done the same with host, or I could have done the same with Wazuh process. It doesn't matter. I just picked healthy in this case, but we're just using this rule to group all of them together. I then step down, and here we're now doing child rules. So here you can see our if SID. Our if signature ID is the same for the 3 child rules below it, because we are saying that if this rule triggers, this is our health check script that's doing this. So we set a rule ID, we just increment it by 1, and here here we're then hard setting the healthy field. So if this value is yes, then we can say all Wazuh services are healthy, and again that directly correlates to what we would see here. So yes, yes, yes. If we see the healthy field with the string attempting_restart, then we'll say the Wazuh service, and here I'm just using this variable to grab the particular Wazuh process, is in a failed state attempting a restart. So that'll trigger this rule. And then here the last child rule here is if the healthy field is set to no, then we'll say Wazuh service, and then dynamically grabbing the Wazuh process is in a failed state. So that looks good. So let's go ahead and save this guy off and run a restart, and we should now start to see some rules be triggered. Script already running, right? So here we see all Wazuh services are healthy. If we expand this guy, let's actually parse out the particular Wazuh so then here you see our fields getting brought in. So our healthy field, our host field, and our Wazuh process field. So if we go ahead and I'll just parse out this guy, and then I will parse out the healthy field as well. Parse out the healthy field as well, and then let me just filter. Then let me just filter on this group. So this will be the only thing that populates. Get rid of that. So good. So here we see all of our Wazuh processes, our Wazuh DB, syscheck D, modules D. And we can see the status of their health, and all these are set to healthy as yes. If we refresh this, it's probably been 30 seconds now, so we should have some more hits come through. And yeah, here we have 24 now, and we see all of our processes again. We see our role description. All Wazuh services are healthy. Now let's actually go ahead and make one of these fail. Let's just do our off D one, since we keep picking on this guy. So let me do let's grep for it so we can get the process ID, and let me go ahead and kill this process. Now we should see the next time Wazuh runs, the next 30-second interval, we should see it actually restart itself in an attempt to bring this process back up online, and we should see that reflected here within Kibana. So let me go ahead and refresh. Let's see if it's been the 30 seconds. And here we get back Wazuh service, Wazuh auth D. So here you can see my dynamic variable in the rule come into effect, because it's able to grab out the value that's in the Wazuh process field is in a failed state, attempting a restart. Here we see our data healthy field is set to attempting restart. And let's see if we can refresh again. And that's looking good. And then of course, if a service still cannot be brought back up, so if a process can still not be brought back up, our healthy set to no here would say, okay, the process is in a failed state, and you see our level is set to 12. And of course you could, you could do whatever with this alert. You could send it to Slack, you could send it to Shuffle, you could send it to the Hive, you can do whatever with it. So we can turn these alerts into high severity alerts if the healthy field still comes back as no, even after a restart. So having a healthy and sustainable Wazuh infrastructure is crucial to your security posture. And hopefully this video and script will kind of help you guys get started into being able to monitor these processes with Wazuh itself. You could of course use other tools like Zabbix, Telegraph. There are other agents that you can use for process monitoring, but if you only have Wazuh installed and you want to take advantage of Wazuh to actually do a little bit of health checking by itself, you can easily do so with these steps in this video. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.